Hey everybody, this is Alexander Fitzgerald or Assassinato. Today I'm going to be discussing with you how to exploit microstakes players. If you've ever seen one of my videos, you know that I believe the best way to learn is through doing, through action, through application, through practice. So I'm just going to make you practice, and then we're going to discuss how we could better play against microstakes players. I know many of you who are watching this video, you like playing microstakes games, you're excited about poker, you want to learn how to beat these tournaments with thousands and thousands of players. It feels like it should be a little bit easier because a number of these players are recreational in nature and don't always play the exact form of poker that would lead to results. So you know there must be a way to exploit them, but you're not sure what that way is. Well, today we're going to discuss a number of the ways you can exploit microstakes players and get results and have a little bit more fun playing these games. So let's go ahead and just start. So here you have Queen 9 offsuit. Villain 2, you actually just got moved to this table, so you don't know much about either of these players. So what would you like to do here? Full color raise. And for most of these decisions, I have a succession of preflop, flop, turn, and river decisions that I'm going to test you on. With the preflop decisions, I'll give you about 5 seconds. With the flop decisions, I'll give you 5 seconds-ish. Turn, maybe 10, river, 15. And yeah, so just be prepared for that. If you'd like to get more out of this lesson, I'd highly encourage you to take notes. Okay, so you've looked at this spot now for a few seconds. So this is one of the first ones I want to discuss with you guys. So most microstakes players I talk to, and I've done thousands of personal lessons over 10 years. If you don't know me, I've done a lot of private coaching. That's been my main thing. I do have WCoop wins, Scoop wins, WPT final tables, EPT final tables. I won the 250K on ACR last year, but my primary focus has been coaching. That's definitely been what I do, and with a focus on database analysis. And one of the things I do notice with microstakes players quite a bit is they just call here. When I'm analyzing players who play microstakes games and I'm going through their databases, one of the things I do notice is that they call here every single time. And I go, why do you do that? And they say, well, I'm getting really good pot odds. And I go, okay. So how do you know you're winning here? And they go, what do you mean? And it's really neat with database management systems, with hand history analysis tools now, such as Poker Tracker or Hold'em Manager 3. You can analyze these spots. It's really cool. So the filter you would look at in a database management tool would be razor plus caller, and then call out of the big blind. And what you're trying to do here is, if you folded this hand, your loss, you would be losing 100 big blinds per 100 hands because you're forfeiting the big blind every time. So actually, it's actually more than that because there's an ante, but it's around that. So you're trying to outperform that. So let's say you're only negative 50 big blinds per 100 when you call here. That would be incredible. That would be excellent. So you're saving half the big blind there. That's very good. Now, unfortunately, when I'm working with microstakes players, what we traditionally see here, what I traditionally see there is, sometimes my team helps me, but in this one, I usually run point. What you typically see is they're losing much more than if they just folded. You see many microstakes players losing here like 200 big blinds per 100 hands. And if you can think back to your science class, the way you would test anything is, okay, you remember the scientific method, which was have a hypothesis, run an experiment, collect data, then analyze the findings, and then adjust your beliefs about the world. Not your beliefs, that's the wrong word. Adjust your analysis, adjust your analysis based on the new data, be able to adjust what you see based on the data. And what you're traditionally going to see is you've been running an experiment. Many people have been running an experiment and not even understanding it, in that when they call out of here, the experiment is, okay, with great pot odds price, I should be able to call here just indiscriminately, and I should outperform a fold. And if the data does not adhere to that conjecture, then it's just an opinion. It's an opinion not exactly based on anything. So I'd very much recommend, I do notice the lower stakes players really lose their ass off, especially in this situation. It's just so difficult. So you're going to be out of position in a multi-way pot, so you can't bluff. And then even when you hit your hand, it's a very weak hand. So if the pot's getting bigger, it's very unlikely to be the best hand. And when you're just starting in microstakes games, it's very difficult at that time to know when a pair is good or not. So take someone who's been playing for 10, 20 years and they call out there, yeah, there's a good chance they could outperform a fold. Sure, they're very good at turning some hands into bluffs, and they're very good at knowing when their top pair isn't good anymore, and so perhaps eking out value in certain situations. But I'd say most of the players I see at this level, what they're calling way too much out of the big blind. This one's pretty close, but I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't show it to you. So here we have Queen Jack offsuit, and it's been folded to you. Would you like to fold, call, or raise? And all of these tournaments, I mean, I've said these are microstakes tournaments, but they're $2, $3, $5 buy-ins. Okay, time is up. We're going to go ahead and call here. And this player raises. Here, would you like to fold, call, or raise? Okay, time is up. We're going to go ahead and move all in, and this player folds. So what's going on here? This is one of the more fun plays, and I did want to put it in here. This is a very fun pre-flop exploit you can do at microstakes games. So I purposefully didn't give you a read here because I thought it'd be a little too easy at that point. I mean, it wouldn't have been that easy, but I wanted to up the difficulty a little bit. You guys are ready for it. You guys, I know you guys study. I mean, if you're watching poker training videos in your free time, you're way more hardcore than you realize. Most people, the general public at your card room doesn't do that, right? Sometimes, and this is something a lot of microstakes players do as a mistake as well. They project how they think about poker onto everybody else. They think that everybody else is thinking about the game critically. Most people are playing it like a table game. So if you're listening to the sound of my voice and watching this video right now, you are much more hardcore than you realize. So I thought you guys were ready for this. In this particular situation in microstakes games, you need to remember microstakes players, because it's a $2, $3, $5 buy-in, they're a little bit more flippant about their calls, a little bit more flippant about their raises, because it's fun. It's a lottery ticket. If you lose $3, it's not the end of the world. So right here, if you were to raise, villain 8 would have a clean all-in, which would put you in quite the predicament, because perhaps you don't want to call more than 20 big blinds with your queen jack high if you raised here, so causing you to raise fold a hand heads up, which is very good heads up. But instead, what we do is a nice exploit here where we limp in. You let him raise all his goofball hands just to attack you there, because hey, it's a $2 tournament, it's fun, and then you just shut the door on him. You win a nice little pot, and that ships you up quite nicely there. So let's go ahead and try to work that into our games. Let's go ahead and work that into our game a little bit more. So that's going to be our first little fun entry-level basic exploit that we're going to discuss today as far as how to exploit microstakes players. try to limp jam 20 to 30x more from the small blind. As you move up in stakes, people are going to be a little more wary of that play. So it's not going to work as much as you'd like, but in these lower stakes tournaments, it does work quite often. Let's continue. If I can ever get my damn clicker to work. Villain 18 goes ahead and opens here. And again, it's a $3 tournament. You don't know a whole lot about anyone. What would you like to do here? Would you like to fold, call, or raise? And yeah, the way this PowerPoint presentation is going to work is if there's a fun little exploit you might not have seen before, or maybe you just haven't been exposed to before, or just a little one, a nice one that you can use in microstakes games, I'll go ahead and highlight it like I just did there. But if we're discussing fundamentals, we'll just keep that to here. So here, what would you like to do? Speaking of fundamentals, this is another one you see a lot of microstakes players do, which is, okay, I have king 10 offsuit. Okay, that flops pretty well. I want to see the flop. I'm getting a discounted price from the small blind. All right, I should go ahead and call here. You need to know, again, when you collect data on this and you look at thousands of players, damn near no one is making this profitable, calling an under the gun raise from the small blind out of position. In order to prove you were making this profitable, you would have to outperform the fold here, which would be negative 50 big blinds per 100. And I see people negative 200 big blinds from here, negative 250. And we're talking sample sizes of years and years and years and years. They just keep running that play. That's what's so nefarious about No Limit Hold'em is you can't remember the specific results because it happens over such a long period of time. And it's not till somebody accumulates it all for you and shows you the numbers where you go, oh my God. So yeah, the vast majority of people do not outperform a fold here when a short stack raises from under the gun. And I mean, just to put this in more accessible terms, I'd like to let you know where I get my idea from. So, you know that I do care enough to vet it out. But if you think about it logically, when you call here, it's going to be very difficult to bluff because if you just lead out, people are going to go, well, why did he lead out into me? Wouldn't he check to me as the raiser? So you'll check, and then when you check, if you donk lead there, a lot of people are just not going to believe it. And if you check there, well, now, if they do any kind of bet, they're more or less committed. And then and at that point, it's going to be very difficult to bluff them. And then you got to ask yourself, is villain 18 really raising like a king 9 suited or a jack 10 offsuit from early position from that short of a stack? Because now if they're not doing that when we hit the flop, we're not even really excited to have hit the flop because they likely, if they're not opening hands we dominate, if we hit the flop and they hit the flop, they likely hit it a whole lot more. And if we hit the flop and they didn't hit the flop, well, they're not going to be giving us much. And if we miss the flop, there's no real way for us to bluff. But truthfully, now if villain 18 was just opening all the time, yeah, sure, I'm sure there would be a way to make this work. But the problem is most people will just see a guy open twice, and because they want to see the flop, they'll say, oh, of course, he's opening too much. Now, that being said, villain 17 here has a really beautiful all-in because villain 17, it could just increase their chips by, damn, a third if they shove over both of us if we call there. And you could expect villain 17 to take that line a lot, in which case we're just never going to get to see the flop, and that's going to be pretty bad for us. So that's a fundamental I want you guys to remember while you're playing micro stakes. And villain 12 goes ahead and opens here. Would you like to fold, call, or raise? This is the same damn thing, guys. I didn't give you a whole lot of time on this one because you should be able to spot it. Where are you looking right now? When you're playing micro stakes, guys, remember you're gonna have short stacks to deal with all the time. Typically the structures are a little faster the lower the buy-in. You gotta look to your left. So a lot of people go, "Oh, it's a 6-7 of spades." It's such a nice hand. Oh my god, I want to see the flop with this, and I get that. It's a pretty hand. It does flop pretty well traditionally, but what's the problem? Villain 9 could move all in on us very easily. Villain 8 could move all in on us very easily. Villain 10 could move all in on us very easily. Even Villain 11 could possibly do it. We're not going to see the flop that often, and again, I'm just going to keep saying it. When you try to isolate these situations, when it sounds really, like big highfalutin words like database analysis or whatever, all it is collecting. You could do the same damn thing with a pen and paper, just writing down the results of every time you do something and then averaging out the totals and see what it is. And essentially all the software does is do that for you with hand histories. And yeah, it's just something I see all the time, which is guys call here all the time, and you'll see them be negative 50 big blinds, negative 100 big blinds for every time they run that, because if they folded, they'd just be negative the ante. That's fine. But what ends up happening, the reason they lose so damn much is because somebody moves all in on them so often. And then if you hit your 6 or 7, even if everybody folds behind you, which would be great, and now you hit your 6 or 7, the big stack did open under the gun. It's not unlikely he'd have a big card he connected with too, so you don't even know if you want to connect with that. So just taking that back to fundamentals, folks. So let's go ahead. Villain 3 in this situation. Villain 3 has been a little active, and you have King Jack offsuit on the button. What would you like to do here now that Villain 3 has opened? Okay, time is up. This one more time, guys, is going to be a fold. So many times, people are playing micro six tournaments, and it's very fun to get involved and to go after it and things of that nature. And they'll say like, "Oh, I've seen this guy open a few times before. We've only played like 11 hands, and they've raised like 4 of them. This guy's clearly a psychopath." It's a little bit more likely the guy just picked up a few hands. It's really fun to say, "Oh, he's active. Okay, I'm on the button. Oh, I got to do something." It's not necessarily. The guy's still opening under the gun. Now, if I had told you, like, I just saw this guy open 6-3 suited from middle position or something like that, in that case, what do you do at that point? You could 3-bet. You could attack a little bit. You want to re-raise, isolate when you have the best hand. So typically when you have the best hand and you're in position, you want the person to play a big pot with you out of position. Because out of position, they have to act first the entire hand. They give you so much information. You could take a 4-card flop whenever you want to, essentially, because most of them check to you 99% of the time. Now, if they're operating with a 3-card flop and you're operating with a superior hand and a 4-card flop, that's going to be pretty tough to deal with. But that being said, if you don't know a ton about the opponent and the person just opened from under the gun, generally give the person the benefit of the doubt. Also, the way you're actually going to get going in micro stakes games oftentimes is you'll have to play a number of them. So I assume you're multi-tabling at this point. So here, you're not very sure. You're not sure there's much profit to be gained here. So I would look for a better opportunity on one of your other tables. Continuing. Here you have pocket queens. Now I think many of you are going to be raising here, but the question is, what would you like to do here with 15 big blinds? Would you like to go all in? Would you like to min raise? Would you like to make it 3.5? Would you like to raise to 10K? I was playing a charity tournament yesterday, and that was how a gentleman liked to play this spot. Fold call or raise. Time is up. So guys, this is a very fundamental exploit we can use in microstakes. I'm trying to balance this lesson here with a lot of fundamentals you're going to need for the rest of your life if you're going to play poker as a serious hobby or as a serious endeavor of any kind. I'm trying to work in some of the fundamentals that are, they take a little bit of work, but some of these are so quick and easy for microstakes. I'm trying to put those in here too, which is, this one's really quick and easy, guys, which is when you're playing microstakes and it's a $2 tournament, remember, people are there to gamble. Don't get cute. So let's say this was a $109 tournament and I shove 15x there. And a lot of the training videos you guys see are, remember, when I'm at work and my colleagues are at work, we do have to play. As I record this, this is Sunday. I just woke up early, so I'm recording this. So when I'm done talking to you, I'm going to go play my majors, and I'm going to go play $500 buy-ins and 109s and 55s and things of that nature, 215s. And when I'm doing that, well, if you shove queens here, I don't expect someone, if they got $200 on the line, to look down at their fives and go, yippee skippy, let's get the money in. So perhaps this might not be the way I play. So if I were teaching you in a training video based on the 55s and the 109s and the 215s I was playing or whatever it was, you might not see this move. But this is why we have to do a specific video for you in your microstakes games. You guys got to remember, in microstakes games, they're there to gamble. They're there to play. Now, a lot of those folks play home games primarily. They'll play like charity poker tournaments. They'll play things of that nature. There's entire scenes in cities where people just go to bars and play like $10, $20 buy-ins. That's their thing. That's the way they pass time. Some people like sports. Some people like hiking. Some people just very much love social, relaxed poker. Now, when they get that poker itch and there's not a game on a Tuesday night or something, and they go online, they're going to be playing the $2 buy-ins, the $3 buy-ins, the $5 buy-ins. And at some point, it gets a little deeper in the tournament. They go, okay, I should probably get back to hanging out with my spouse and kids. Let's try to rustle up a stack here, or just call it. And you move all in and they got a pair, or they got a suited ace, and they go, okay, cool, let's just go with it. And they don't begrudge you for having the better hand. They're gambling with you. They're fine with that. And you just got to remember that there's definitely a reason to get cute in higher buy-ins, which is sometimes I'll do a smaller raise, because one of the ways you can get people to overcommit and say a 109 is sometimes the big blind calls with way too many hands than they should, and then they hit any pair, and versus the short stack, they're just not folding. You'll see that more in higher stakes tournaments, if you can find the soft spot in the big blind and whatnot. That being said, you just don't need to bother with a $2, $3 tournament, because you can expect a lot of, if I moved all in a 109 here, I wouldn't expect Villain 18 to just go, woohoo, get it in with my fives, right, with all these other players back behind. But instead, in microstakes, we can collect nicely right there. So let's go back to this slide here where I'm keeping my non-fundamentals, easier exploits listed out, just so you have an easy way to remember them as you go play microstakes. So how to exploit microstakes players, we already discussed limp jamming 20 to 30x more from the small blind, but also jam those 14 to 22x stacks more with big hands. These players love to gamble, and you'll have an edge. You're going to get called by hands you don't expect to get called by, so keep it up. Continuing. And here, Villain 19 goes ahead and limps in, and you have Ace Queen offsuit on the button. What would you like to do here? And again, you don't know a whole hell of a lot about any of these players. If I have a note, I'll read it out to you guys, but most of the time you don't know a ton about these people. Okay, that is it. I gotta do my job, guys. Fundamentals. Fundamentals. So first of all, I see a lot of you folks limping in here when you play microstakes. Don't do that. You likely got the best hand. It's like Final Jeopardy. And you know the topic. Put all the money down. Come on. Or it's like your topic on Jeopardy. Go to the highest ticket and run it. This is your game. You have ace queen offsuit. It's very likely to be the best hand. So when you raise here, though, how much would you want to raise to? So you limp for 400. You have 16,000. So I see a lot of you folks raise to 1,200 or 1,600 here. I'd very much recommend you raise bigger, because these players love to limp call. Once they limp, why do they limp? Do you remember your first home games? You limp because you want to see the flop. Now, when somebody raises, you don't go, well, I guess I don't want to see the flop anymore. No, you still want to see the flop. So you're very likely to go ahead and call whatever the hell is out there. And then you're playing a big old pot out of position. And sometimes you'll get players to overcommit. And this is another example. So we got another player to overcommit with, I mean, if they think we're getting a little out of line there, they can get it in there. But many times, versus a limp and a raise there, the A7 might not be the greatest, but that doesn't matter, because the great thing about these players is they'll still just gamble with you. Villain 19, villain 9, someone's going to gamble with you. So do raise those limps a little bit bigger, because if everybody folds, that's still fine. You get 3 or 4 big blinds, which, hell, some people, that's their entire win rate for 100 hands. And if you do get people to commit out of position, and they limp called with a bunch of weak hands, and you're playing a big pot in position with a superior hand, heads up. And remember, they're probably going to check to you 98% of the time, or whatever it is. So you get a 4-card flop whenever you feel like it, whereas they get a 3-card flop, and you have the better hand to begin with, and you get to see what they're doing. It's going to be very hard to lose with that edge. So do remember to press your position. Right here, we got the 7-8 of diamonds. What would you like to do? Time is up. Did you want to play this hand? Slow down there, cowpoke. Look at, okay, so guys, what do people want to move all in with? It's usually like 15 to 25 big blinds, something like that. How many of those stacks do you have to your left right now? You got what? 1, 2, 3, 4? 4 of them? You got a lot of people that 5. Well, here's the thing about microstakes players. If it's a little bit of a tougher site, if we're being frank, if you're playing with a number of euros who are currency leveraging, or just folks who are currency leveraging anywhere, because maybe 2 or 3 or $5 isn't a ton of money to you and I, but I've been in countries where that's, you know, the USD is pretty strong. So you'll see folks taking this game pretty seriously. Now they'll know, those players who take it a little bit more seriously, whether they're in Latin America or wherever, and they're playing pretty hard, they know they're not supposed to be cold calling from a lot of these stacks, but if they see you opening a little too much, which they'll likely pick up on if you're the type to be opening this willy-nilly, they're going to put in their 24x stack, their 26x stack, and things of that nature. Now, if you're playing with, let's say you're playing a very loose, passive, American-facing anonymous site, should you open this hand? Those players aren't as likely to move all in on you. Well, you'd prefer to have big cards because the stacks are pretty short right now, so your implied odds aren't great. So all those nice straights and flushes you want to make on the turn and river, we're not loving odds we're getting to draw to them. We would much rather have, say, a king-jack offsuit here, because if we get top pair versus another short stack and we get it in, it's going to be pretty difficult to make a huge mistake there, especially if that person, let's say it's a loose passive player and they just cold call too much and you hit top pair. If you take a look at their typical cold calling range and you see, your top pair versus it, you can get a lovely piece of software called Flopzilla if you'd ever like to try this out. And what you'll just see is you have a ton of equity versus all those ranges with the top pair. So getting the money in on the flop is fine. Whereas you'll see if you're drawing, you don't have as much equity. And then, it's likely going to be all in on the flop if the person hit something pretty decent. That's what loose passive players do with their short stacks. Okay, let me see the flop. Okay, I hit the flop. Okay, let's go. And that's when you get into a lot of trouble. So I'd be very careful in this spot. Here you have ace 10 of spades. Don't know a whole lot about villain 26. Villain 26 has gone ahead and raised. All right, that's time. Don't be afraid of the big all-in, guys. There's no law that says you can't. You have to have less than 20 big blinds to move all in. This is a slam dunk all in. Most micro six players will open way too much from the button. I see a lot of you folks just call there to see a flop because you're scared to play until you hit the flop. If you move all in here and you pick up all the money, going from 9K and change to 11K and change at 200, 400 is a 9-day difference. You get all these new tools in the tournament. You got the check raise working for you now. You got the 3-bet working for you now. You got a little double barrel action working for you now. You can threaten some of these short stack players. You can put them on the back foot. You want to take those tools. All right, here you got the queen jack offsuit. It's on you. Fundamentals, guys. Fundamentals. You should have known it by now. What am I about to say? Well, you don't want to raise there and let them move all in with their king 4 suited. That's a better hand than yours. You don't want to raise there and let them shove their ace 2 offsuit. That's a better hand than yours. Put the pressure on them. Make them call off for all their chips. Especially if it's right before the bubble bursts. See if they got it. There's no law that says you can only open jam 10 big blinds or less. 15 big blinds or less. You can put in more than that. This is totally fine. And then, okay, you're going to get caught. Sure, it's going to happen. But guess what? In No Limit Hold'em, I've been informed that the bad beats in backgammon are something like 5,001. But in No Limit Hold'em, it's so funny. If this happens live, like where you turn the queen, Villain 30 will act as if this is the worst thing that's ever happened to them, which is, I want your life if this was that bad. Now, but you're never that big of a dog in No Limit Hold'em, so you should be gambling. You should be pressuring. Even in the worst situations, when you're just pre-flop dominated, you still got a 1 out of 5 shot. If I was running a parlor game where I put a ball underneath 1 Dixie cup out of 5, and then you came into the room and I said, randomly pick which one do you think has the ball underneath it, and you happened to get lucky and you picked the one with the ball underneath out of the 5 Dixie cups, and I went, oh my god, this is so sick, this is ridiculous, oh my god, how you're so lucky, this is such a joke. I would sound like a crazy person. And but you got to remember, you got to put the pressure on them, because there's a pretty good chance you still have a ton of equity even when you're called. And if you win this pot just before the bubble bursts, like, whoo-wee, you get, people always ask, how do I get a big stack on the bubble? How do I get a big stack going into the money? It's like, you got to be putting the pressure on them, putting all the pressure of like, do you want to cash? All right. Good luck. Choose, risk your tournament. risk your possible min cash. All right, you got to put the pressure on them. And then if they do buck up, if they do wake up with a hand, remember, you're never that big of a dog. And if you win that pot, whoo boy, it's going to be real fun from that point on. All right, that's it for pre-flop. Let's go on to flop. All right, let's get into some of these flop situations. So here, villain 6 has open on the button. I'm not in love with calling here, but I know a lot of you folks do. So just typically with short stacks, guys, you want big cards. If you're going to play short stack pots, heads up, you want big cards. Because you make a big pair, you get it in when the stacks are short. It's going to be pretty hard to do that incorrectly. Now with 3 high, it's going to be exceedingly difficult to hit a big pair, methinks. So the board comes 10-5-5, and you get a nice little flush draw. What would you like to do here? Check or bet? If you do want to call here, let's at least do it right. Time's up. We check. And this player fires 1.3K. It is on you, full call or raise. Time is up. We're going to go ahead and raise here. Now, this is a more basic exploitable play that we should do a little bit more versus micro stakes players. So the thing you need to know about micro stakes players is when it gets folded around to them on the button, they want to play so bad because poker, they're still recreational players and poker is still very fun for them that they just open way too much from the button. And then when a very hit or miss board like this comes out, where it's pretty unlikely for you to have flopped anything, they're going to fire pretty much just 100% of the time. So there's many times versus more balanced players here where I would just say just call. Just because oftentimes they'll not be bluffing such a high percentage of the hands that you really are incentivized to just cash in your equity at this juncture, or just, check. When you check raise here, this guy's bricked the board like 70% of the time, given how wide open his ranges are. So you just cash in, and then a lot of times micro stakes players, they'll just be like, well, I don't want to fold my king jack, damn it, and then they call, and then they miss the turn, you shove, or whatever it is, yeah, pretty much a shove, and then they go, damn it, and then they fold, and that's just so much money. But if you're dealing with a more balanced player, when you move up, they're checking back some hands for pot control. They're checking back once in a while as a give up. And they're betting sometimes as a bluff. But a lot of times they actually have some kind of hand they're trying to work with. Well, versus them, a lot of times you can check call once. Then if it gets checked, if it goes check on the turn, they've missed with a lot of their c-bet bluffs, and you can lead river as the out of position float and look a lot like a 10, and they'll be able to read the line and just fold to you. Whereas micro stakes players, they're not doing that. They're not going to read your line. Like they're not that good at that. So you can just go ahead and take the fight to them in that particular situation. So here you do have a limp, and you do have another person all in for 48 chips. What would you like to do here with fives? All right, that's time. And villain 12 has been limping quite often. That change your answer? We're going to go ahead and raise here, and villain 12 calls. And the board comes king 7-6. Here, would you like to check or bet? Time is up. We go ahead and check here. And villain 12 fires. Here, Would you like to fold, call, or raise? Okay, that is time. We're going to go ahead and fold. And what's going on here, guys? Whenever there's a really short stack player all in and a micro stakes player gets to see your hand anyway, they'll often be much more casual about folding because a lot of micro stakes players, they just want to see your hand. You even hear them say that when they do play live, like that on the river, they'll even tell you, I just gotta see it. I just gotta see it. So if there's a very short stack there and they'll get to see your hand anyway, they'll fold a little bit more pre-flop and on the flop. Now here, you do need to know sometimes you'll get an atrocious board and you gotta pump the brakes, but there's a good thing here. What is it? If a player's been limping a lot, that's probably because they're a more passive player, and passive players don't bluff as much. And passive players, let's say here you got some showdown value, obviously 3 to a straight flush, you want to see the turn in river. And micro six players, they'll just let you see it. They're just not going to be bluffing as much as they should. So you'll be able to get to a lot of showdowns, so you don't have to attack this board. Now, I did check fold, and he did have king 8 of clubs, so there you go. And here we have 10-9 of hearts. Villain 4 goes ahead and opens. Now, Villain 4 has been open quite a bit. We go ahead and call here. A little bit of a dangerous call with that short stack. Villain 1 being short, but he'd been doing a lot of this, which was just calling all the time when he should be moving all in or folding. So we go ahead and take the risk. Sure enough, we get a nice big multi-way pot. Now Villain 2 goes ahead and leads into you here on this board. What would you like to do here with a 10-9 of hearts? Fold, call, or raise? Let's get to work, guys and gals. Poker lessons can run you $400 an hour. You're just grinding right now. You're grinding. You're learning how to play better. Focus, feedback, fix it. Let's get to work. Okay, so a lot of people do want to call there, but you want to be careful because Villain 1 is... If Villain 1's going to do anything with that short stack, oftentimes they're just going to shove. And then that's going to reopen the action, and Villain 2 will likely blast you off the hand. So with the 2 overcards and the backdoor flush draw and the gut shot, it's very tempting to call there, but you need to remember micro six players love getting it in all the time when they've hit anything on the board. And you'll see micro six players how many times come on guys, you know this has happened. Villain 1 shoves there, then Villain 2 re-isolates, and then you see Villain 1's hand and you're like, why would you re-isolate with that hand? It's like Jack 7 of clubs, right? But guys, that's on us. We need to know micro six players are trying. This is their MO. They want to see the flop, and then if they kind of hit it in any fashion, a lot of times as they're short, they want to go watch Netflix. They want to go watch the game, whatever it is, and they're just going to put it in there. So it's on us to be wary of that. Now, if you called here, that's certainly not a bad play. It's just I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't tell you guys in micro six tournaments that this is their MO. See the flop, somewhat hit the flop, get the money in on the flop with any kind of short stack. So you need to be wary of that. And this was a specific situation where that came up. So here you have Ace-7 offsuit facing a raise from Villain 40. Again, you don't know a ton about this player. So we're going to go ahead and call here. And the board comes Ace-6. The board comes Jack-6-7, sorry. The board comes Jack-6-7. It's back to checker bat. Okay, that is time. We go ahead and check here. And this player bets 2.7k. Would you like to fold, call, or raise? All right, that's it. This one is a fairly easy fold. What does it mean, guys, when microstakes players bet really big on a board like this? What does that mean? Typically, if they raise from early position, and did you notice the person raised into a bunch of people that could move all in on them? Let me double check. I got that right. So I didn't highlight this, but okay. So yeah, this person can move all in on them. 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 So when you see that, you have to call here, but you're going, that's probably a decent hand. So you're looking for an excuse to not get involved. So here you flop second pair, and you're going, uh-oh, I do have to get involved here typically. But the person lets you off the hook when they bet pot, because that's typically, okay, if a person raised into all those people who could move all in, and now they're just bombing the pot on a 3 to a flush board, they're telling you almost every single time, this is just, I have queens and damn it, we're getting this money in and you're not going to beat my overpair again. I've been waiting so long. I've been so disciplined. I've been, for some reason, microstakes players are just everybody when they start playing poker, that they think, even though there's 9 people at the table, and if you think about it logically, it's far more likely on almost every single deal, one of those 8 people will have a better hand than you. For some reason, microstakes players, or all of us, if we're being honest, when we first start playing poker, if we don't get dealt a premium every single hand and have it hold up, we, for some reason, think the world's out to get us or we're super unlucky. I was playing a charity tournament yesterday. I was taking a friend of mine to a charity tournament because he wanted to learn a little bit about cards. And I said, well, it's not going to get easier than a charity tournament, so let's go ahead and do that. And the guy finished third. He's like first game in like 15 years, aside from just like playing with friends or something. But that's beside the point. I was 5 hands in to the day. And 2-3 players at my table started talking about all the bad cards they were getting. They really do expect to get dealt premiums from the start. Now, if God forbid they got to wait 31 minutes before they get a premium, which is just every day of no limit hold'em, that's how random distributions work. That's about that's even a little ahead of schedule, getting a premium every half hour or so, or whatever it is. They think because they've waited half an hour, I mean, my God, that's one Ren and Stimpy episode. That's forever. They think they deserve to win, damn it, with their premium. So this board comes out there, and this is a board you're not, if I check shove on this board, you're not loving your queens with no spade. But they're not folding because, damn it, this hand should be good, and I'm not going to let you suck out on me again. And even if they lose, it's not their fault at their point. It's your fault for playing a stupid hand. But this person lets you off the hook when you got a mediocre hand here. This person is clearly just bombing. It's probably a pretty good pair. Your 7 is not worth anything anymore. They're going, you're not hitting that damn spade, damn it. My hand, I've waited, 19 whole minutes for this hand, and I'm so deserving of a big pot because I'm so moral and patient that we're going to go ahead and just play for stacks because I deserve this pot right now. And if you're going to have to pay a lot of money if you think you're going to suck out on me, mister. And that's your cue to exit stage left. Ace 10, middle position. Full color raise. I think most of you are raising here, and I hope you all notice there's not many short stacks behind you. Villain 21 goes ahead and calls. And
The board comes king 9-3, 3 clubs, and villain 21 leads 750. Would you like to fold, call, or raise? Five more seconds. Okay, time is up. We are going to raise here to 2.5k, and this player folds. How do we know this is likely to not be the hand? So first of all, in microstakes games, there's a reason it's called the donk lead. It used to be a joke. Only a donkey would lead here. Because most players in position are going to make an assumption, which is a pretty good idea to assume, which is, hold on, I'm the preflop raiser. If this person really did flop a flush or flopped 2 pair or some strong hand, wouldn't they check to me and let me fire so they could build some kind of a pot? When you lead out there, it makes a little less sense with a big hand. You take that play away from me. So what that means is it's very likely that this is someone testing the water. That means this is someone who wants to see where they're at. That means this is someone who wants to see, maybe if I take a cheap shot at this board, I could take this away. Now, sometimes you'll see some good players donk lead. It's not a super balanced play, but it works pretty well as an exploitative play versus a number of players because, especially live, you can get great reactions out of people if you donk lead real quick. That'll help you curtail the range quite a bit. But that being said, when you see better players donk lead, what do they tend to do differently? So let's say a guy here wanted to donk lead as a bluff and they were a slightly better player. They might lead 1,500 or something along those lines, maybe 2,250 or something that'd be pretty hard for us to deal with as the in-position player. When a person donk leads small and you're already at a buy-in level where it's micro stakes to begin with, it's very likely that this is just someone who wants to see if they can get you to fold to any kind of bet. So we are not going to respect this. Now what happens is, a lot of the times, people who watch poker on streaming sites, they see that versus most donk leads, most people just call because that tends to be a little bit more of a well-constructed range when you're playing against better players. You do not have to respect these players. This donk lead is very likely to be a very weak exploitative play by this person. They're hoping you're multi-tabling, you look down at your hand, you don't have a whole lot, and you fold a little too much. And to be fair, when they bet so small, their bet doesn't need to work that often. You're going to be better than that, and with a large percentage of your continuing range, you are going to go ahead and raise here. So going back to our list of exploits we're going to be using in microstakes tournaments, and I tried to make these simple so everybody could get something from this video. Even if you're new to poker, we're happy to have you here. If you're playing for the first time, I'd recommend, or if you're new to the game, I'd recommend these plays to exploit your opponents. They're easy to implement. Limp jam 20 to 30x or more from the small blind. Jam 14 to 22xx more with big hands. These players love to gamble. And raise weak small donk leads frequently. They're likely bluffs. Now, if someone does do a weak small donk lead and then they call when you raise fairly quickly, what is that, guys? A lot of the times that's a weak pair. So if your hand on the turn, you run into something that's a lot better than a lot of the weaker pairs on that board, don't be afraid to charge them and get some money from them. Continuing, we have pocket tens here. Now, I think most of you are raising this, so we'll skip past that part of the test. And villain 19 calls you here. Now the board comes queen 10-4. Villain 9 checks to you here. Here, would you like to check or bet? 10 seconds. Time is up. If you did want to bet here, how much did you want to bet? The right idea here is to bet larger. Now we bet larger here and he folds. How does that make you feel? Most people do not want to do large bets because it's more fun to show down our hands. We feel superior when we get to show down a big hand. Doing a really big bet and everybody folds, that doesn't feel great. But you got to think of it within the term of percentages. So let's say, what does villain 19 likely continue with? Well, microstakes players, if they flop a pair, they pretty much always continue. And when they miss the board, they fold too much. And this is a board where if you had a random ace high, you're not that excited about it because it's fairly coordinated. But if this person has a queen or a 10 or even a 4, they're probably calling the first bet regardless of what you put out there. So if you could bet, many people would bet 1/3 pot here, 800. Let's say you get called there 100% of the time, which is not true. Okay? So let's say you bet 800 there, but you get called 100% of the time. So your expectation is 800. But let's say if you bet 1575, you get called there 90% of the time, 80% of the time. It's still going to out-earn the bet that succeeds 100% of the time on average. It's just you're going to have to deal with it when you fire your set pretty big and the person folds. And then, yeah, the peanut gallery would always tell you, oh man, you fired too big. You shouldn't have done that. But what they don't see is, now look, I play against a lot of weak players. That is 90% of my job is game selection. I like to play against weaker opposition, a lot like your microstakes opposition. I can tell you when they flop pairs, they have a hard time folding. Everybody says the same damn thing to me. These people never fold. And then they'll flop a set on a board where people are calling you with king jack, jack 9, spade draws, 10-9, 10-8, jack 10, king 10, ace 10, queen 8 suited, queen 9 off, queen jack off, queen 10 off, king queen off, ace 4, 5-4, 6-4 suited, 7-4 suited. They're calling you with all these hands and they go, oh man, these players never fold. Quick, bet 1/4 pot. Get real cute. The name of the game is taking other people's chips. That's what you're here for. You're not here to show down hands, to show everybody how awesome you are. You're here to make money, and if that means once in a while you're cracking a couple of eggs to make an omelet, so be it. You want to put these big bets out here when on this board, let's be honest, guys, calling with a high card is not fun because it's such a coordinated board. Your opponent's probably just going to call you with the pairs, and they're probably not folding regardless of what you put out there with their pairs because they can always justify it to themselves, like maybe he's got a draw. So you got to go for it. And that brings us to another exploit I want you guys using with microstakes players. We'll go through all of these again before we wrap up today. But right now, when they flop pairs, they can't fold, so bet big. And don't be worried if they fold. They likely just missed the board and they were going to fold anyway. It shouldn't make you feel any kind of way. When they flop pairs, they can't fold, so bet big. So if you're on a flop where it's really unlikely anyone was going to call you with high cards anyway, bet bigger, because it's mostly going to be the pairs that are going to continue, and they're not that sensitive in regards to the bet size. They just like to continue. They like to get to showdowns. It's fun. It's like their home games. It's like a casino game. Continuing. Got the queen jack offsuit here. Guys are sufficiently deep, so you raise here. Villain 2 re-raises. Now Villain 2 has been a little lively. Has been a little gung-ho. All right, what do you want to do here? Full call or raise? Okay, that's time. We decide to call. And the board comes 7, 9, 10. And this player bets. Would you like to fold, call, or raise versus this aggressive player? 10 seconds. All right, that's time. If you did want to raise here, what did you want to raise to? Go ahead and raise to 10,000 here, because here's the deal. You're willing to get this money all in anyway with the overcards and the open-ended straight draw versus a very loose aggressive player. That's fine. That's fine. But you need to know microstakes players like to gamble. So if you just shove here, what they're going to see a lot of the time is draw. And now you've given them a license to call off with their sixes or their ace-7 suited or whatever it is. If you make them hit the all-in button with those weak pairs, they're going to have a much harder time doing it. I used to shove here not understanding how loose recreational players thought, and I would be flabbergasted when they beat me into the pot with ace-kick. But you need to know if you shove here, they're thinking draw. Because they want an excuse to continue playing, and it'd be fair to the guy. He's amassed all these chips, and maybe he wants to gamble, and that's his prerogative. But you need to help them find the exit. You raise bigger here, and you make them hit the all-in button with the ace-queen or the sixes or something like that. They're not going to find that as easily. Now, in this one, we did get it in. And I think I won this one. So, just a total. So, as you can see, yeah, we had him pre-flop. On the flop, we're both getting that money in. As you can see, he was goofing off toward me quite a bit during that day. And you got to be ready to gamble. You got to be ready to gamble when you're playing with recreational players. Because remember, that's how some of these folks blow off steam. They got a tough job. They got a tough gig. They're taking care of their kids. This is how they relax. And sometimes online they get a little bit more wily than they would be live, where people would be able to talk to them or whatever it is. All right, let's keep it going. Let's keep drilling. This time we got a lip from Villain 5. We're in the small blind here. What would you like to do? We're going to go ahead and limp here as well. If you said raise, that's fine. The board comes Jack 7-3. Would you like to check or bet? Time's up. You check. Comes around to Villain 5. Villain 5 bets. What would you like to do here? You go ahead and call. The turn is the ace of diamonds. Would you like to check or bet? Time is up. Go ahead and check here. This player bets 5.2K. It's on you. Full call or raise. 10 seconds. Okay, that's time. I'm going to go ahead and fold here. Let's discuss another way you can exploit these players. So most of your job in No Limit Hold'em is getting people to pay off your value bets. The biggest pots you're going to win are going to be when you secure a river bet that's bigger than all the other bets combined, and you can't secure a river bet with a bluff. So the way you're going to secure that river bet is by value betting. Now, the name of the game is getting them to call you with as crappy a hands as possible so you can value bet with as many decent second pairs and weak top pairs as possible. If you're like every other player who waits till they get a set once a session, decides to start value betting, you're not going to get where you want to get in no limit hold'em. The great thing about low stakes players, micro stakes players, they like to call all the time. They love to call. They don't like folding. Folding is a guaranteed loss. That's boring. They don't want to do that. So what you're doing a lot of the time is trying to play big pots heads up in position with superior hands. Now, notice I didn't say premiums. I said superior hands. You just have to have superior hands to the person you're playing against. So if you got a guy opening 6-3 suited and whatnot, you can 3-bet Jack 10 off as a value bet if they're just going to raise call you with 6-eye. And then you can start shelling them once you flop some pairs. It's a high variance way to play. It's worked for me for decades. The big blind keeps calling you and nobody's 3-betting you. You just keep opening and getting that big blind to play you with 50% of the hands. And you just keep value betting them to death. Death by 1,000 cuts. You keep going at them. You got 1,000 spots. You got 1,000 spots with weak players. The only way you're going to give it away is letting these people take it from you when they finally decide to play pot. Now, if most of these players are loose passive, that means they escape your purview most of the time. They escape your notice. Because aggressive players, you know, are aggressive 55 minutes in, 15 minutes in. Because they get attention. Now, if someone's loose passive and all of a sudden they get very interested in a pot, you should get very wary. This person normally doesn't like playing. Why are all these big bets going in? If someone is a bluffer, you're going to catch them bluffing. Nobody bats 1,000. Nobody pitches a perfect game. You will see bluffs at some point. You haven't seen bluffs out of a guy. In fact, you haven't even seen aggression that could have been a bluff. They don't deserve your money. They don't deserve your bets. They didn't do anything to earn it. You got your wheelhouse. You, with your 3-bets where you're targeting people, with your raises where you're getting the big blind out there with too many hands. It's like a martial artist. The better a martial artist gets, the less moves they need. A great boxer can beat you to death with just the jab and the cross. Now, if you're a weaker fighter, you're going to try to draw them out into a firefight. The dumbest thing a great martial artist, a great boxer could do is just get into that firefight. But the smart ones will stay on the outside like, sorry. I will beat you to death with the fundamentals. I will beat you to death with the basics. That's what we're trying to be. Now, this guy's trying to draw you out into a firefight. This is a firefight. So, I was a little wary when he limped. This guy wasn't doing that often, but I didn't say that before the start of the hand because honestly, you can fold here always. What's the most important thing to be asking yourself before you make a big call? And this is a big call. What do you have to ask yourself? First thing you should ask yourself is, does he do this with X? And X is the best value hand that you beat. So what would that be? Jack 9 suited? 10s? That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. He's playing that hand pretty strong for an ace being on the board. It's not impossible. It's just not that likely. By the way, guys, there's a lot of times people play poker and they want to be perfect. There are no good options here. We are comparing two options, folding, which sucks, and calling, which sucks. The question is, which one sucks more? Let's avoid that. There is not a third hypothetical situation where the guy suddenly takes the bet back and then there's a showdown right here on the turn and we get to see if our hand is good or not. That does not exist. So if you're looking for that, do not expect it. It doesn't happen. If you don't like any way to play the hand, don't opt for the one that at least gives you a showdown so you can sleep well at night. That's how good players take advantage of you. Why do you think Netflix shows you the cliffhanger and then just starts playing the next episode? Humans abhor an open loop in their heads. If I tell you a joke without a punchline, it's going to drive you crazy. If you hear the tune to a song that you grew up with, but you can't name the artist, it'll drive you insane. Humans hate that open loop. So they'll pay good cash money to close it by calling down when they should not. Your options suck here. One option sucks, but you'll get to see what the guy has, and then you can, I don't know, some people like to think, some people I really think get a thrill out of thinking they're unlucky. They really get something from that, and I don't understand that. They really love it. It's uniquely not their fault. And they'll call down just to see the person's hand. They'll give away their money just to see the person's hand. So one option sucks, but it gives you the payoff of a closed loop. So you don't have to wonder at night, like, did that guy bluff me? And the other one sucks, but there's an open loop. Now the question is, which one sucks less and which one will cost us the least amount of money, and which one logically should we be pursuing? So again, I'm going to say it again, do not expect perfection from a game of chance. There's a reason people do this at 4 a.m. while drinking whiskey and barely avoiding fist fights and screaming at each other. It is gambling. Things happen. Now, thankfully, we can do it on the internet, and it's a little bit more hygienic than the check cashing places I played in the back of growing up, but it's still gambling. So do not expect it to be perfect. There is no third hypothetical, beautiful option that saves us from how annoying this spot is. So remove that from your mind. Now let's get back to business. He does a big bet. Does he value bet anything worse? Maybe, but probably not. That seems pretty odd for someone to play tens or jack 9 like that. Most of these players love to see showdowns. And if they have a mediocre hand, that's a perfect time to get to a showdown. So, is this a value hand we beat? Most likely not. Okay, how about a draw? Now, a lot of people are fixating on that. Yeah, that's it. He's got a diamond draw. How many combos is that? How many combos? If you don't know it off the top of your head, you probably should not be gambling on it. Just for reference, every one of the combos is 1. It's 1. King 10 of diamonds, that's 1. 8, 9 of diamonds, that's 1. How many combinations is an ace there? It's a whole lot more. I'd recommend you get a copy of Flopzilla if you want to get down to this, and there's a lot more. There are far, far, far more combinations of aces there than there are of flush draws. So, okay, could it be a flush draw? Maybe. But there's not many of them. Okay, is he turning a pair into a bluff? Now that actually does happen with low stakes players sometimes. But if you haven't seen them getting aggressive before, it's unlikely to have happened. And is it an absolute bluff? It's the same thing. Asking ourselves, is it an absolute bluff? It's the same thing. If we haven't really been noticing this person, then not. And one of these things, you might have it right now, but why would you give them the satisfaction? Why would you do that to yourself? Why would you get out of line like that? You're going to beat them up with the fundamentals. By the way, the hand's not over if you call here, guys. There's still a river to play. You got to let this one go. So let's go back to the big board of exploits and discuss this one. Put it simply, when loose passive players start bombing the pot, get the hell out of there. If you have not noticed them before, that means they're probably not that aggressive, which means there wasn't even an opportunity for them to be bluffing earlier. It's very unlikely this is their first bluff. It's possible, it's just not likely. So you're not going to gamble on it. It's like a pitcher who throws a really terrible breaking ball 5% of the time. Could you knock that one out of the park? Yeah. Should you be looking for it? No. Why? Because 19 out of 20 times it doesn't come. If he's got a mediocre fastball, that's the one you're looking at. If he throws that 60% of the time, what's their mediocre pitch? They can't call down correctly. They don't know how to do it. They just call down all the time. So just focus on that. When loose passive players start bombing the pot, get the hell out of there. Now, if you see something, you see some kind of bluff, you see them getting aggro, you see them consistently too, not like no showdowns. They played a few pots aggressively because that's most likely the hand. But if you see them get caught bluffing, you see that kind of thing, then by all means, start calling it down. Okay, continuing. All right, guys, let me show you how to do this on Flopzilla real quick. So the board came the way we did this. The board came 3-7 jack. The person limped in, so we put their hand there. Over here, we put jack 10 hearts. The person limped in, we check called. Let's assume they take a shot with the entirety of their range on the flop because it's a pretty hit or miss board. Now that's not totally accurate, but by the way, guys, this is just a thought experiment. I'm not saying this is 100% accurate. I'm saying this is how you would do it at home, right? You can adjust any assumption I'm making here, really. I'm making assumptions for the purpose of expediency. Is that the $5 word for that? But to be quick. So, all right, so he fires. So we put a blue filter next to everything here. And, okay, then we turn this from red to green. Now he fired all of that. Turns the ace of diamonds. As you can see, our equity's pretty swell here. All right, 73%. Things are looking good. Ace of diamond comes. Not good. All right, so he fires again. Now, what is he firing? Let's go through our ranging. Now, a set, 2 pair, yeah, okay, and I got him limping. So typically, this is another thing, guys. Loose passive players, low stakes players in casinos or micro stakes tournaments, they tend to raise their best hands and limp their good and mediocre hands, and then they fold their crap. So I tried to make the limping range what I thought was like good and mediocre hands, and as you can see, there's no ace, king, kings, queens, ace, queen suited because those are the hands most of them raise. So he fires on that turn. So yeah, it's going to be set. Yeah, it's going to be 2 pair. Yeah, it's going to be top pair. And then we didn't really think he'd fire middle pair because he'd probably try to get that to a showdown. And then, okay, cool. We'll give him some draws. And, we'll give him, the 5-4 suited there. Okay, so we're giving him a bunch of draws and like top pair better. When we do that, you just see our equity just hit the floor at 22%. Now, and a lot of people fixate on, oh man, he's got a lot of flush draws there too, right? And the name of the game isn't put the guy on one category of hand you're ahead against right now and then continue and put lots of money in. That's not the name of the game. The name of the game is obviously looking at the entirety of his range and asking how it's going to play. Now, what you're going to notice is we're not doing so hot. And like I said, every diamond draw you can think of, you can see it. It's one combo. You see that little 1 underneath the 6-4 suited, that little 1 underneath the 6-5 suited? That's one combo. Now, let's go up to the ace-queen off. He might have limped. Now, that's 9 combos. Let's look at that ace-jack. Even the one we're blocking, that's 5. Now, look at the ace-10. That's another 7. And don't forget, there's the ace-jack suited, the ace-10 suited, the ace-9, all the suited aces. That's a lot of them, man. It's a lot of them. So, as you can see, if we're going like, oh, yeah, he could have draws. Like, this is a time a person could have a lot of draws. Like, I'm trying to give him a lot of draws here. There's no indication he 100% limps 6-4 of diamonds or something like that. But you'll even see then, it's only about a quarter of the time he's got all that. And that means the other 75% of the time, we are just screwed. And by the way, he gets to see the river if we call. We all catch that, right? The hand's not over. So, yeah, we're not looking so hot. Okay, continuing. Final note on that hand, guys, because this is a big one. Like, if I could remove one error from all my friends and my students who are getting into micro stakes, low stakes casino tournaments, things of that nature, it's when loose passive players finally get active, that's usually because they had a pretty big hand. Just because you had top pair on the flop doesn't mean you need to continue. This would be the one I would tell them the most. Like, it's okay to not pay off nut peddlers. It's just fine. You'll go home, your bed's still going to be there, your bagel's going to taste the same in the morning, your coffee's still going to be there for you. Nothing bad's going to happen. And once again, I hope you noticed we needed 30% equity on that turn to call. If you were saying we got to call there, but you didn't know what equity you needed, what you likely had, or even just a guesstimate or anything like that, and if we didn't even realize, like, holy smokes, even when we call here, he still gets to see the river. If we weren't thinking through all of that, we were just getting out of line. We were just purely saying, I thought my hand was good on the flop, and damn it, it should still be good on the turn. And that's not how poker works. Things change all the time. So here, you have ace king. Villain 11 opens. On you. Fold, call, or raise. That is time. Go ahead and raise it up. This person calls. And the board comes ace, queen, 7. So here, would you like to check or bet? Time is up. We check here. And villain 11 checks back. Turn is the 3 of diamonds. Would you like to check or bet? Time is up. Go ahead and fire 6.5K, and this person folds. So a couple of notes here. I'm trying to give you some work. You were kind enough to show up here today. You were ready to train, so I'm here to let's get the work in. I want the work to be good. You know, your time is valuable, so let's get as much as possible out of it. So here, I went for a play. I went for a microstakes play. I do this a lot in casino tournaments here. So you check here. And a lot of guys who are just getting into the game, they think a check is like, oh, cool, he missed. And they fire a lot of hands they should check back here. Like if you got 8s here with the 8 of diamonds, you probably shouldn't be firing. That's a pretty bad board. But a lot of the times you'll be playing like a $50, $100 casino tournament or just the $3 tournament online. You check to someone, they go, yippee skippy, and they fire and you just jam. And then they go, uh-oh. Okay, cool. And you'll get a lot of weak bet calls from just crappy aces and crappy queens. Essentially, the rule is with micro stakes, low stakes players, if they can put you on a draw, they're calling. So when there's a draw out there, you're trying to maximize the money going in when you have especially a top pair, top kicker. Now, when he checks back there, that is a lot of crap. That's a lot of, because the person probably would have bet a lot of their really good aces and probably would have bet their draws. So we're not that, maybe not, but a lot of them they didn't. And remember, that's not many combos to begin with. So when they check back there, what is that? Well, that's a lot of really crappy aces, queens, and yeah, just some mediocre pairs that didn't take the bait. So we don't want to bet our hand here. So a lot of times people go, crap, he checked back. Okay, 10K. No. Your hand's easy to play. It's right in front of you. His hand, their hand, is very important to you. Your hand's right in front of you. You know what it is. What's their hand? They just told you. It's terrible. So we do a bet that works with micro stakes players. We just do the same bet as before. And a lot of the times, that will get them in. Didn't work that time. Let's go with the ace 9. One player raises. Another player calls. Let's go. Full call or raise. I did some simple exploits, but now we're going to work. Let's play some streets. We go ahead and call here. Board comes 6, 8, 10. Check, check, and, check. My villain 20 on you. You decide to check there. Villain 19 checks. And the turn is the 5. What would you like to do here? Just a few more seconds. Check to you here. Would you like to check or bet? Time is up. We check. This player checks. River is the king of diamonds. Villain 20 checks. It's on you. Would you like to check or bet? 10 seconds. Time is up. Check here. And this player bets. Would you like to fold, call, or raise? 15 seconds. 10, 5, 0. All right, you're going to fold here. All right, guys, now what is going on here? I'm testing you. So often, when you take a test from a poker coach, every play is going to end up being some big old bluff, big old value bet, some exciting hand. Well, guess what? A lot of your work is not going to be like that. So you might have been thinking to yourself, oh, I blocked the nut flush. Ooh, maybe an overbet will do something. No, not with microstakes players. They don't fold. You guys tell me that to begin with. They do not fold. If they will not fold, do not bluff. Unless it's a specialized good situation. You know what's not a specialized good situation? It's going to be a multi-way board on a super connected flop. Because most likely someone hits something and they're not going to be folding. Let's go again. Did I get you to fall for that one? All right, let's pick up the tempo. I think you all are ready for it. So we raise our ace jack here. And villain 26 calls, villain 28 calls. The board comes queen a2. Villain 28 checks to you. Would you like to check or bet? Time is up. Go ahead and check here. Villain 26 checks back. The turn is the 6 of hearts. Villain 28 leads here. Would you like to fold, call, or raise? This one is very close, but something I want you to know about microstakes players. They struggle bluffing. They very much struggle bluffing. So if they got a weaker ace high there, they got to draw. A lot of times they're just going to check and see if they can get it to showdown. So you're up against a stronger range there than you realize. You still got a player left to act behind. Now the person could be poking around with whatever. But with one player to act behind, you can let it go. And I wouldn't get overly involved in these multi-way pots because you see a lot of people lose their ass off there. And most of the time in multi-way pots with weak players, they're going to check too much and let you realize your equity. So when they're firing, you can let them take it. Wouldn't do much. It's a small point, but I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't bring it up. So here you raise the king, queen, and you get called by a couple of people. The board comes king, jack, 7. Villain 28 checks you. Here, would you like to check or bet? Let's do a couple of multi-way pots because that's what you guys always tell me. Nobody ever folds to me. Well, here we go. Let's drill it. Time's up. Now, did you bet half pot? Did you bet 1,100? 1,200? Why would you do that? What are they going to continue with? Are they going to continue with ace 6 of diamonds? No, that's a terrible board for a high card. So what they're continuing with is pairs. Are they going to fold a pair to pretty much anything? Probably not. I guess if you go over 2K, you might lose a 7, but you're probably not going to lose a king or a jack, regardless of what you put out there. So bet bigger. When there's flush draws and straight draws out there, they're not folding pairs. That's not what they signed up to do. People play poker because, I hope you're sitting down for this, they like to play poker. People gamble because, again, I hope you're sitting down. This one might knock your socks off. People gamble because they like to gamble. Nobody goes to the casino to watch other people play blackjack. They came there to gamble themselves. Have you ever seen somebody go to the casino to watch somebody play slots? No. They're there to gamble themselves. So when they flop their pair, the whole reason they called you pre-flop is they want to see if they hit the flop. Now that they hit the flop, they're not out of there, especially when they can put you on a draw. Get a little bit more money out of there. All right, so villain 28 calls, and villain 28 bets on the ace of hearts turn on you. Fold, call, or raise. On your marks, get set, 15 seconds. 10. Cinco. That's it. You're cooked, man. It changed. It's over. Such is life. Moving on. Whatever. Same thing. Same thing we were discussing in the last hand. When loose, passive players all of a sudden get very, very interested, that's going to be most of your competition at microstakes, and truthfully, that's going to be a lot of your competition in low-stakes casino games if you're playing those as well. If they all of a sudden get interested, you got to be a little careful. It's okay. Just ask yourself some simple questions. Don't try to stare through the internet connection and get a soul read. That's not going to help you most likely. Most people, when they're playing live, they just go into a fugue state. Do I think my hand's good? Is it good? God, what did I say? And it's not really conducive. Ask yourself some logical questions. Does he do this with X? Does he do this with the best hand that should be? Does he just up and lead King 10? Does he just up and lead Queen Jack? Now, don't do this with me. I've seen people do that once. The exception proves the rule. You remember it specifically because it's so odd. Other times you just call down here and the guy has a little flush. You forget all those because it happens so many times. So, could this be a weaker hand? Probably, but not. Probably not. Maybe, but probably not. Okay, is it a draw? All the draws got there. Queen 10 got there. Heart draw got there. So that's not good. Okay, is he turning a pair into a bluff? That I'd like to see. I've spent over a decade teaching poker players how to play. Do you know how hard it is to teach a guy how to turn his hand into a bluff? Nobody wants to do it. If you do a bluff and you get caught, you lose a big pot and everybody sees what happened. If you do a bluff and it succeeds, you win a smaller pot and nobody gets to know what a badass you are. That's a negative emotional free roll that most people won't engage in. Homo sapiens don't like that. And is this just a high card? Is this like a 10-9 of diamonds? Again, do you see how thin this sounds the more we think about it? But you'll play with people. You'll even play 1-2 and people just call here like it's their job. Like, yeah, I got the second pair, man. It was top pair on the flop. They'll even say that to you afterwards. I had top pair on the flop. Like, what does that have to do with anything? The turn brought in the flush draw. The turn brought in the straight draw. The turn brought in an overcard. This is a completely different situation. All right, let's keep it going. A little bit more work before I get y'all out of here today. Here, would you like to fold, call, or raise? If you just go ahead and fold when the short stack opens from under the gun, that's totally fine. Now me, I got a little bit of an ego, so I decided to take a flop. Board comes 2-8-8. I know a poker player with an ego. Hope you were sitting down. Checker bet. That doesn't exist. Does it? We're the most humble folks in all of creation. We check here. Villain 45 goes ahead and bets 1.6 on you. Full call or raise. That is time. Go ahead and call here. The turn is the Jack of Diamonds. Would you like to check or bet? That's it. Go ahead and check here. This player checks back. River is the King of Diamonds. Here, would you like to check or bet? 10 seconds. Time is up. Very micro stakes play here, but here's the deal. If you wanted to make an argument for turning your hand into a bluff on this river, that's a pretty crappy board run out. Pretty bad. If you thought your opponent was pot controlling with some crappy pairs, yeah, all right, you got a point. I'm not saying that's what I would do. I'm saying you have a point if the player was a touch more sophisticated. If they were the type of person who, for whatever reason, you thought was going to fold 9s or 10s or 7s or whatever there. If you thought this person, just a lot of the time you could get that play over on them, you might have a point. That being said, you have a lot more showdown value than you ever realize in micro stakes tournaments. And you have a lot less bluff equity than you realize. One, because they check solid hands all the time. And two, if you shove, there's no indication they're folding damn near anything. So, take the showdown on this one. And probably you shouldn't play this one pre-flop. I was multi-tabling a few of these trying to get hands for you guys. But I thought that was a good example because please don't bluff people who don't fold. I know. Kind of crazy. But I can't tell you how often I talk to someone who's just making their life harder for themselves. Just like, I tried this bluff and it should have worked. How did he call me with 6s there? And it's like, you're the one who tells me they never fold. Just don't do that. So, okay, here we go. We go ahead and raise with the 9s. Villain 46 calls. And the board comes ace, jack, 8. It's on you, checker bet. That is time. Go ahead and check here. This player checks behind. Turn is the ace of spades, checker bet. Time is up. Go ahead and check here. Don't turn that hand into a bluff. Like we just said. And the river is zoinks. It's a 9, checker bet. 10 seconds. 5. All right, that's it. So, if you did want to bet here, how much did you want to bet too? Remember, they never fold you. That's what you're always telling me, right? How does this make you feel when they fold? Shouldn't make you feel anything. The guy probably totally bricked the flop. That's it. That's literally probably like 10-7 of hearts. Or excuse me, 10-7 of hearts. That'd be a hand. That's like 6-5 of hearts. Okay, sorry. But it's almost, if these players don't fold, two things can't be true at once. Okay? These players can't simultaneously never fold to you. And then they also are the players who, with 85,000 tournament chips, will fold a jack to your slightly larger 5,000 chip pot bet. Those aren't the same player. So what does this guy have here when it goes check, 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 check? Most likely he has nothing. Most likely he has nothing, so your bet's not going to get called. The question is, how often, and he's not going to bluff. Don't check here expecting him to bluff. These players are loose, passive for a reason. So, most likely the person has nothing. They're not bluffing with it. Okay, so we're going to fire a bet here. That is not going to be called the majority of the time. That's fine. Now, how do we get the most out of the few times we do get called? Think about it. Does this person have an ace? You might say, that's crazy. He would have fired. You would have. You're the type of person who, if you're still listening to the sound of my voice, wow, I've been talking a while. You love to work on your game. You are grinding. Give yourself a pat on the back. I legitimately am proud of you. I'm not joking about that. Most people say they want to get better. You actually want to get better. You want to be a better poker player? That question can only be answered with action. And today you are acting. So give yourself a pat on the back. But here's the deal. A lot of these players are not like you. You know you got to bet an ace. You know you got to bet an ace. But I'll tell you how this works. I'll tell you because I've worked with a lot of different poker players at different buy-in levels. So this board comes out and they got like the ace 10. that they called with, or the ace queen. This board comes out and they go, ooh, that's kind of a dangerous board after you check to him. I don't want to bet here and get check raised. So they check back. So it turns an ace and they really like that. And they're like, the flush came in. He might have the flush. I don't want to bet and have him raise, so I'm going to check back. Crazy to you and I, right? Because we're trying to get money from our hands. But to them, it makes perfect sense. Because the worst thing that ever happened to them once was recreational players hate when they make a big hand that loses. That feels terrible to them. And if we're being honest, that felt awful to us at our first home games. Remember the first time we had 3 of a kind and somebody hit a flush? We couldn't shut up about it. We told everybody about it. Oh my God, so I had 3 of a kind and the guy turns it over and he had a flush. So we just got to remember they might still be at that level, okay? So, does he have an ace here? Yeah, some small percentage of the time. What's he going to call with an ace? Pretty much anything that's not an overbet. Okay, how often does he have a jack here? He has a jack here a lot. Why? That board, not a lovely board to fire a jack on after we check. So he checks for pot control. That's what they don't even know what that word, they don't know exactly what that means, but that allows them to get to showdowns, which is what most recreational players are there to do. They want to see flops because you know what? When the flop's coming out, you're not thinking about your boss chewing you out at work. Not thinking about the problems you're having with your kids. You're not thinking about your financial difficulties. You're not thinking about your weight. You're not thinking about how little sleep you're getting. You're not thinking about your 401k. You're not thinking about any of that. You're free. And at the river, when everybody gets to showdown in your hand, there's another moment where you're just weightless. You feel nothing. And truthfully, that's what a lot of gamblers play for. That release from the stress and monotony of the day. So, they try to get to showdown a little too much. They might say to you, pot control, pot control, pot control. They're not exactly sure what that means. What's that J.P. Morgan quote? A man does everything for 2 reasons. A good reason and the real reason. Now, so this person sees a jack on that board, kind of coordinated, I want to get to showdown. Okay, I check. Turn, little. Okay, the ace paired. Could have an ace. Spade came in. All right, I'll check it back again. Is the jack going to fold to anything you put out there? No. Of course not. No, not when he's got 85,000 chips. He's not folding to a 5,000, 6,000 chip pot, so you go bigger here. And you got to accept this. You can't be afraid to not get value from your hands. If that's the optimal bet, that's the optimal bet. And the more you work through hands like this, the more quizzes you do, the more you work at your game, the more automatic that's going to be. Villain 48 goes in and raises. It's on you in the big blind. You got to practice. You got to practice like every day. I still practice pretty much every day. 15 years into this, okay? It's just like you were a hitter in Major League Baseball. You probably always have to be doing batting practice. Always. Go ahead and call here with the king, queen off. The board comes 5, 6, 8. It's on you. Would you like to check or bet? Time is up. Go ahead and check here. Villain 48's been opening a little bit at this table. It's been raising quite a bit pre-flop. It's Villain 48 goes ahead and c-bets on this board. What would you like to do? Full call or raise? Five seconds. Okay, guys. Go ahead and raise here to 10.5. And this player calls. The turn is the 3 of diamonds. Would you like to check or bet? 10 seconds. 5. That's time. Go ahead and check here. And this player checks back. The river is the 6 of diamonds. Would you like to check or bet? 15 seconds. 10. 5. That's it. Give it up. And he fires. Think you're all folding there. The real question was, did you run a bluff after you got caught? Now, this is one of very few bluffs you can run. What's going on here? So what happened? Real quick, and if you've seen me explain a check raise before and you didn't see this one coming, that means we're not committing to it. Focus, feedback, fix it. When you're studying focus, then you're going to get feedback from me. Now then you got to fix it. You got to take it into the field. We're interrupting that process somewhere of purposeful practice if we didn't see this one and we've seen a check raise before. Let's get to it. So we're not going to go super accurate on this, but what we will show here, so you got your King of Hearts, Queen of Diamonds, and homeboy here is opening a lot. We've noticed he's opening a lot. All right. Cool. Good for him. It's his money. He can do whatever he wants. So, okay, let's just give him this hand. This is actually a pretty controlled raising range. Some guys get a little bit more out of line than this, but okay. So he's opening this. Micro stakes players, low stakes players, if you check out of the big blind and you guys are heads up and you just complete a pre-flop, a lot of them c-bet 100% of the time. Just all the time. There's just very little balance. And that opens a door for one of very few bluffs you should be doing versus weaker players. So this board came, what was it? 5, 6, 8 rainbow. 5 of clubs. 6 of hearts. And my memory isn't what it once was. 8 of spades. Let's take a look. So what you're going to notice here is no made hand is 62.45% of the time. How do I know that? Because people like to raise with big cards, not middle cards, not low cards. You'll notice this is what people like to raise with. If this doesn't match with this, they likely didn't hit. If these hands do not match on the flop with these cards, it is very likely they missed. So, what do I mean by that? So what happened here? If I can figure out how to operate a computer. Okay, so we risked 10.5 to win 21.7. So, using our super high-tech calculator here, our bet as a complete bluff needs to work about 48% of the time, meaning villain 48 here needs to defend with 52% of their hands. They must call or raise with 52% of these hands. That's going to be mighty difficult for him to do. Because, let's just see how often he has any pair, any draw. And I mean a real draw, like an open-ended straight draw. Well, he only has that about 34.5% of the time. He's bricking this board almost 2/3 of the time. Okay, we'll throw in the gut shots. All right, give him some gut shots. He wants to defend with. He's still only defending 43% of the time, which means he's folding 57% of the time. And by the way, once he calls us, we have a lot of equity because what's he going to call with mostly? It's going to be his 8s, 6s, and 5s. Do a lot of those have a king or queen in their hand? No, our outs are pretty clean. They probably didn't raise with King 5 off or Queen 6 suited. Even if he's a little wild, those are pretty far out there on this one, as you can see. I mean, it's not impossible. It's just not as likely. Whereas if we check raise bluffed with an ace high, it's really likely he has all the ace 8s, ace 6s, ace 5, at least the suited combination. So we do a bluff. Now, here's the thing. The whole reason we do this bluff is we think he opens too many hands, he c-bets with all of them, and he only continues with a pair or an excellent draw. Great. Once he gets through that, he has an excellent draw or he has a pair. He's probably not going to fold. So we don't want to just go cowabunga, dude, and get rid of all of our money here. We had an angle, we took it, it didn't work. And I know some of you guys have always told me I don't like it when I'm learning from poker trainers and everything in their hands works just perfect. Everything goes perfect. That's not how my games work. They're messy. People are loud. People are annoying. There's slots going off in the background. And Dale just spilled his beer on the felt again. Oh my God. No, and you're right. No, my games are messy too. They're always messy. So this is a really good lesson. As you can see, there's a very good logical reason we went for that bluff there. Villain 48 was getting a little live. He was getting in there. We took the fight back to him. We had a lot of outs on the turn. Most likely we missed all of them. He passed the test. He wins. Good luck to him. All right. Continuing. All right. You got the ace king. Villain 12 opens. It's not a drawing hand, guys. Raise it up. Villain 12 calls. Board comes queen 3-2. It's been checked to you here. Here, would you like to check or bet? It's been checked to you here. Yep. Checking. Check back. Turn is the jack of diamonds. Villain 12 checks to you. You want to check or bet? 5 segundos. I think I said that right. Go ahead and check here. The river is the ace of clubs. It's been checked to you here. Would you like to check or bet? That is time. If you did want to bet here, how much did you want to bet? Time's up. We're going to go ahead and bet 1.5. And this player folds. Okay, guys, what's going on here? We're putting together a lot of fundamentals again. So remember, you always have more showdown value in microstakes tournaments than you realize, and you have a lot less bluff equity than you realize because they don't like to fold. And what that means is, the reason that's true for both of those is, let's say this guy was goofing off with an ace-8 off, not inconceivable at microstakes. Let's say we 3-bet him and he decides to call with ace-8 off. Not inconceivable. Well, he wants to get to showdown too, so you guys will likely just get to showdown here a lot of the time. Now, this board is this person, after it goes check, check on the flop, are they going to lead a lot of the queens on the turn? Most likely. It's a pretty good hand. How about the jacks? Maybe they check some of them. But once they check the third time on the river, they don't love their hand. They probably would have led an ace at this juncture. They probably would have bet a queen on the turn. So we're looking at a jack or worse a lot of the time. This is a lot of times, 6s, 7s, just piddly nothing. Bad pair. And once in a while, it's a pot-controlled pair. That's confusing. But remember, our hand's easy play. It's right in front of us, okay? Don't go, oh my God, I hit my hand, 5K. Now, there are situations, and I tried to show you some of the situations where big bet was appropriate. This one, though, pretty damn likely he doesn't have much of anything, so we do go for a small bet. Right here, you got the queens. And a little bit deeper in a micro 6-1. This was trying to play some tournaments for you guys. This is the one I cashed, I believe, yeah. Not for a whole heap of chips, but anyway, Villain 58. Oh, excuse me, he limps in here. Villain 58 limps in, my bad. Sorry. Misread it. I looked at Villain 55 and thought that was the big one. So you got a limp. What'd you like to do here? Oh, clearly you're going to raise it up. You got to get this guy involved as much as possible. And you will see a lot of weird limping in microstakes events, even late. Because remember, these are home game players. These are players playing for fun. Now, it's been checked to you here. Here, would you like to check or bet? You have more showdown value than you ever realize. You do not need to turn hands into bluffs. If they are weaker than you, they will often just check it down and let you see more cards. They sure as hell are never folding anything they hit on that board. Most of what that board hit, it's not good for you. So he checks again to you on the turn. You want to check or bet? 10 seconds. 5. That's it. Check it again. The river is the 7 of clubs. Villain 58 checks you. Here, would you like to check or bet? Time is up. Go ahead and bet. Come on, guys. You know when your hand is good. Wouldn't he have led an ace on the turn a lot of the time? Or at least on the river? Wouldn't he have maybe even fired again? Fired just once with the king. A flush for sure. So we go ahead and we get that little value bet in there, and he calls. So that's one of the other things. And it comes right back to, let's just go discuss the fundamentals one more time. Some exploits, some plays you can use versus micro stakes players, and this will work a lot of the times in your local casino. Let's go over all of it. That was a lot. That last hand referred to when they flop pairs they can't fold, so bet big. Now in that hand, you saw they can't fold damn near anything. He called us probably with very little. But you see, they can't even fold that, so we didn't bet big, but we bet something. We always got to be trying to get value from these players because they can't fold. Now let's go over the 5 exploits real quick that we discussed in this video, so you can just look at this, write it down, and be good to go before you go to your session. Remember, you got to try to apply everything we discuss in these videos. You can't learn to swim by reading a book. You got to get in there and fight it out yourself and learn. So, limp jam 20-30x more from the small blind. You get to do that a lot in micro stakes events because people just want to gamble. They just want to raise. They just want to fire. And also jam, on that note, jam 14 to 22xx more with big hands. These players love to gamble. Give them that opportunity to go bust. Let them get it in. All right, I want to go watch Netflix with the family. Great. I'll shove my 19x with the queens. You can call with your ace-8 suited or your jack-7 of diamonds or whatever it is, and we'll run it. And if you beat me, good luck to you, sir or ma'am. Raise weak small donk leads frequently. Also, I see too many of you guys just call all the time versus these donk leads. But you got to understand when micro stakes players do that, they're likely bluffs. They are testing the water. They're seeing what happens. They got a really crappy pair that they want to, quote, find out where they're at with, end quote, or they just got nothing and they're hoping this will get you to give them some cheap cards or just fold because you're playing too many tables. Do not give into it. Now, when they flop pairs, they can't fold, so bet big. We discussed that extensively, especially on boards where it's very coordinated and it's unlikely anyone's just going to be calling you with a bear high card. If they got a pair, they're not folding regardless of what you put out there because it's all funny money to them. It's a very low buy-in. It's fun. So bet big. And again, guys, when loose passive players start bombing the pot, get the hell out of there. They most likely have it. All right, guys, that's my time for today. I hope you enjoyed this one. Take care. We'll see you for the next one of these. Oh, and one more thing. To contact me about private coaching, please email Alex at PokerHeadRush.com. Thank you again.